Great. Well, thank you everybody so much for being here. This is the first workshop that we've had in a while for our Codese farmers and other people who might be joining us today. So this workshop is going to be on farmer pricing, and this is going to help give you some strategies for how to set the prices for your produce or any other products that you might be selling. So thank you again for being here. So, to give a brief introduction, we are from the Center of Southwest Culture. We are an organization that is working to help develop healthy Indigenous and Latino communities. And we do that through economic development and educational and cultural work. The CODESE program is short for the Community Development Center. And through that program, we assist farmers and also other small business entrepreneurs who are looking to use their existing resources to build a sustainable business. So we do that through supporting farmers in regenerative agricultural strategies, as well as training in business management and financial management, as well as branding and marketing. And there's some other awesome services that we provide. So if that's something that you're interested in and you are an Indigenous and or Mexicano, Chicano, Hispanic, Latino, Mestizo, individual, you are welcome to join our program and receive those services. So without further ado, my name is Emma Dewey. I am the manager for the CODESE program, and I'm going to pass it over to Jose.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, or good evening. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. My name is Jose Manuel Castro Lopez, and I'm the program manager for the Sembrando Salud program. I'm not going to touch too much about Sembrando Salud. It's a gardening program, but today I'm also helping out Emma because I'm also the program coordinator for the CODESE program. Thank you, folks, for being here today. So, next slide, please. So let's get started. So the topics today, we're gonna be talking about how to set pricing. So those are gonna be the basics. We're really gonna cover mostly vocabulary, do some basic stuff, and I'll pass some of that. I'll do some of those things with you folks. Then we'll go next to the how to calculate cost. After that, making a profit. And then at the end, we'll talk about conclusion and any questions that you folks might have. Emma Dewey is with us, like she just introduced herself. So I'll do like a quarter of it, which will mostly be getting out the vocabulary so we could all be on the same page. But the actual workshop of like figuring out the numbers and all that good stuff will be our true dear Emma. But thank you. Thank you, folks, for being with us today. All right, first, how to set pricing. Setting prices for produce involves consideration for farmers to ensure profitability while remaining competitive in the market. Here are some steps and factors to consider. All right, so we're going to consider four things at first. So it's going to be cost calculation, market research, quality assessment, and production scale. So what is cost calculation? Determining all production costs involved, including seeds, labor, equipment, water, fertilizer, supplies, and other inputs. This forms the baseline minimum price at which the farmer can break even. So yeah, how much does it cost you to actually, get back what you put in? Market research. Understand the market demand for your produce. Do your research on local market prices, trends, and consumer preferences. This helps in setting competitive prices that reflect market conditions. One of those things is knowing what everybody's taking to the farmer's market, just to make sure you're not taking the same, because then your prices will probably have to be set a little bit lower. Quality assessment, assessing the quality of your produce compared to competitors. High quality produce can often command higher prices if marked efficiently. Production scale. Consider economies of scale. Larger parts may be able to lower their per price cost, allowing uh, for potentially lower prices while maintaining profitability. Yeah, pretty simple there. And like I said, this is mostly the basics, but we'll get into the works in a little bit. Next slide, please. Pricing considerations. Competitive pricing, set prices competitively relatively to similar produce in the market. Pricing significantly higher or lower than competitors should be justified by differences in quality or value-added features, from basic corn or is it Chico's, that kind of stuff. Value-added considerations, if applicable, consider adding value to your produce through specialty varieties or sustainable farming practices like regenerative farming, which can justify higher prices. I know one of those things back in the day was like if you were organic certified, and now it's super expensive. But like having those kind of thoughts, seasonal variations, prices can fluctuate based on seasonal availability. Consider adjusting prices accordingly to reflect scarcity or abundance during different times of the year. Simple cost and demand. Market channels. Evaluate different market channels. Example, farmers markets, New Mexico grown, food hubs, etc. And understand their pricing dynamics. Each channel may have different pricing strategies based on their clientele and overall overhead costs. Next slide, please. Pricing considerations, feedback and adjustments. Monitor sales and customer feedback regularly. Adjust prices based on market response, demand fluctuations, and changes in production cost. Long-term strategy. Develop a long-term pricing strategy that aligns with your farm goals, such as sustainable profitability, market expansion, or brand positioning. By considering these factors, farmers can develop a strategic approach to pricing while pricing their produce that balances profitability with market competitiveness and customer demand. All right, so we're getting into the nitty gritty here. So, how to calculate cost? Completing a cost calculation for farming involves systematically accounting for all expenses associated with producing a particular crop or product. Here's a step-by-step guide on how farmers might approach this. So we're going to take this into consideration where we're trying to find the cost, right? Identify direct cost. So here are some of those things. It could be the seeds and plants, fertilizer and chemicals, labor, fuel and energy, equipment rental or depreciation, water, and supplies. So seeds and uh, direct costs can include transportation costs. Let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, so cost of seeds or seeding purchase, expenses for fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, if you use those, and other chemicals that might be used, labor, wages, or salaries. Remember to include your pay because you deserve to get paid as well. Fuel and energy costs related to field machinery or energy used for irrigation and other operations. Equipment rental costs associated with renting equipment or depreciating of owned machinery. Water costs related to irrigation water or water usage fees. And supplies, the cost of supplies and producing crops such as row cover, translating supplies, or drip irrigation. Next slide, please. So, and then we're also going to think about calculating direct costs. Overhead costs include costs that are not directly tied to a specific crop, but are essentially essential for farm operations, such as property taxes, insurance, premiums, utilities, maintenance and repairs of buildings and equipment, and just overall administrative costs, such as paying for an accountant, potentially even legal fees, etc. So review and adjust. Periodic review. So regularly review and update cost calculations to reflect changes in input prices, labor costs, or other factors affecting production. Consider making a schedule for yourself, whether that's for every season. Costs are constantly changing. Next slide, please. Compare with revenue. Profitability analysis compare the total cost per unit with the expected revenue per unit to determine potential profitability. We'll discuss revenue and profit later in this workshop. By completing a thorough cost calculation, farmers can make informed decisions about pricing their produce, optimizing their operations, and ensuring sustainable profitability.
Just a note that your audio is coming a little bit muffled sometimes, Jose.
Oh, okay. Should I repeat what I said on this slide?
That could be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. So compare with revenue profitability analysis, compare the total cost per unit with the expected revenue per unit to determine potential profitability. We'll discuss revenue and profit later in this workshop. By completing a thorough cost calculation, farmers can make informed decisions about pricing their produce, optimizing their operations, and ensuring sustainable profitability. So before we turn to the next slide, Emma had put a little bit more information into the chat. So she was talking about direct costs can include transportation costs or costs related to processing produce or storage. And then admin costs can include using Square, like the little where you charge cards, Square, and other points of sale systems as well. Next slides. So at this point, we're going to take some questions. I know that was a lot of information, but the good thing is that the second part of this workshop will be a little bit more hands-on, and Emma will teach us how to actually find profitability, how do you look for the costs and calculate that to see how much you could do in revenue and then profitability. But as far as now, does anyone have any questions? If you, for whatever reason, can't say it, you can definitely drop it in the chat, and we'll read it out loud. All questions are good.
I have a question, Jose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, so I am a small scale farmer, and that means like under 3/4 of an acre. Me and my family um farm mixed vegetables, and I have sold to like tiny grocers, Bedrock Kitchen, Agricultura Network, the CSA, La Cosecha, and Mobile Grocery, Mogro. And so I have I have some experience, and it was really just me like giving my best shot based on how I was trained and how I learned from other farmers and programs. So anyway, but something I think I realized like the hard way, and I didn't see it on your list, is as far as market channels, or actually for all of them. And this, yeah, is do you encourage negotiating with sometimes these vendors? In my experience, I feel like I learned that like that's just still awkward for me, but yeah, just like where is there room for negotiation of the prices? And then also I think just because I love to hear from other farmers as well, but like, have you had an experience at a farmer's market? Because I've also worked at farmers markets, and I think farmers markets are the pickiest as far as if you set a price that's too competitive, meaning too low, meaning compared to the others around, then they actually will kind of ban you or ask you to not do that. Yeah, I just would love to hear thoughts on like that from other farmers. Do you experience that? How do you push back against that? Yeah, just what are thoughts?
It's a great question. Do you want to say anything about that, Emma?
I can jump in. Yeah, I think there's definitely room for negotiation always. And I think that I mean it depends on kind of first of all, you want to take into consideration like your costs. Like you should always make sure, first of all, that your costs are covered. And that's your baseline. And then from there, it's kind of up to you to determine how much of a profit makes sense. And we'll kind of go over that here in the next section. But like everything is dependent on the context that you're working within. So it's going to vary from market to market. What price is going to make the most sense. So I totally hear you on the farmers market and setting prices that are too competitive. But I think that learning how to set like an appropriate profit margin is one way that you can kind of help to guide that. And then also like, yeah, just observing kind of like the market trends and determining what is going to help you cover the cost and get you enough profit that you can make some investment back into your operation. So does that kind of answer that question a little bit?
Definitely, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then yeah, I'd love to hear from some other people too to see how you're navigating that experience.
And then we have a question in the chat from Lorenzo. They ask, is there a certain guide used for pricing?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, great question. And we are going to cover that in the next section. And actually, while I have you all here before we take a short break, the next section is going to go over some formulas that you can use. So it might be handy for you to have a notebook on hand or somewhere that you can take notes if that's your phone or something else. Because, yeah, it'll be really handy for you to have that information available to you. So, yeah, we're going to cover it. And hopefully, by the end of this workshop, you're going to come out of it having the skills that you need to be able to set your pricing. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's 4:27. Let's go ahead and take that 10-minute break and come back at 4:37. So yeah, take that quick break, get some water, but definitely reach out for that notepad because I think this next part is really helpful, especially since we have Emma here, so we could just ask the questions that we have now. But keep in mind this video is being recorded and we will post it on our YouTube, but immediate questions will be answered right now. So yeah, let's go ahead and take that break and we'll see you back at 4:37. Thank you. Okay, here's another one. There's another one. Awesome, awesome. Okay, let's get started. Go ahead, Emma, please.
Right. So in this section, like I said, it's going to be really handy for you to have a notebook on hand because we are going to go through a little bit of math. Math is definitely not my subject. I hate it. I'm terrible at it. But I promise the stuff that we're going to go through is really simple and it's really going to help you. So in this example that we're going to do, we're going to go through an example of a farmer who is going to be growing tomatoes. We're going to break down the costs that he has, and we're going to calculate the total cost per pound of the tomatoes that he's producing. So in this example, he's only growing tomatoes. So we're just going to be working with one crop. And he has 10 100-foot rows of tomatoes that he's estimating are going to produce about 5,000 pounds of tomatoes. So this is where we're going to get our numbers from. So at the beginning of the workshop, we talked about the direct costs and the indirect costs. So these are going to be some of the direct costs that this farmer is going to have. And keep in mind, these are just kind of thrown together, so not really perfect examples of costs that he might have, but just to give you an idea. So he would have seeds and plants. Say they cost $500. He's going to have fertilizers. We're going to say that's $100. And labor, the farmer is making sure that they're paying themselves. That's the most important thing because we want to make sure that you are getting paid. And then also any farm workers who are involved in the planting, tending, or the harvesting. This also includes fuel and energy, anything for machinery or the energy for irrigation, maybe water costs. Maybe they're using a municipal water source for some of their post-harvest handling, supplies, anything that's used for trellising the tomatoes. Maybe that also includes like some drip irrigation. And then also keep in mind that the direct costs might also include like transportation costs and things like that. This farmer doesn't have any in this example, but this is just to give you an idea. So we're going to add all of those different costs together, and that's going to give us a total of $6,900. So then we're going to calculate the indirect costs. So this farmer has property taxes that are $200. Insurance premiums, we're going to say that's his liability insurance, and that is $300. His utilities, that's $400. Maintenance and repairs for facilities, and administrative costs. So adding all of those together, that's going to give us $1,300. Then we're going to look at the annualized costs. And these ones are a little bit more out there. Some farmers don't include them, but I would recommend that you consider including them because these are costs that are associated with your production, whether you realize it or not. So one of those is going to be the depreciation of his equipment, and that's $700 that he's estimating for his tractor. Interest on loans. He has a farm loan that he's paying off, so $400 in interest. And land opportunity cost. So this one is the cost that it might cost for him to have this property being used for something else. So say he was like renting it out to somebody, or if he was putting that into alfalfa production instead of food production, what would that annual opportunity cost be? And so all of those costs together are going to be $2,100. So then we're going to calculate what all of those total costs are going to equal to. So you're adding together the direct costs, the indirect, and the annualized costs. And that's going to give you your total cost of production for the tomatoes. So adding all those together, the 6,900, 1,300, and the 2,100, it's going to equal $10,300. So that's a lot. And now we need to break it down into what it's going to cost per unit. And remember that we estimated that he's going to get 5,000 pounds. So we're going to break that down per pound.
Wait, sorry, Emma. Can you go back? I'm trying to write down as you're going, and I couldn't catch everything. Give me 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Sorry if I'm going too fast.
Okay, sorry. Please move forward.
You're good. Awesome. So then we're going to break it down, like I said, per unit. So the farmer is estimating that he's going to have 5,000 pounds of tomatoes this season. So to find the total cost per pound, the farmer is going to divide the total production by the total cost. I'm sorry, the total cost by the total production. So that's going to equal $2.06. So in that example, the farmer calculated that the total cost per pound of tomatoes is $2.06. So that means that that is what the farmer would have to set his price at for them to break even. So now the farmer needs to figure out how much of a profit they want to make. And that's going to be determined by their profit margin and their selling price. But that's also going to be dependent on the other factors that we talked about, like what market it is, the competitiveness, what quality your product is. Do you have like a high demand product, something that's like a niche product that nobody else has? Is it a value added product? All of these different things are things to take into consideration in addition to your profit margin and what you set your price at. So in this example, we're going to say that this farmer is an approved supplier for the New Mexico Grown Program. And for those of you who don't know, the New Mexico Grown Program is a statewide program in New Mexico that helps to connect local producers to local institutions like schools, senior centers, early childhood development centers, and food banks. So it creates a direct relationship between buyers and sellers, you being the seller if you are a farmer. So yeah, in this example, we're going to say that the farmer is a supplier for the New Mexico Grown Program. So we'll look at how this farmer might go about setting their price for their produce based on sale price and profit margin. So according to the data from New Mexico Grown, in the 2019 and 2020 year, the average selling price or the revenue that a farmer was making for a pound of regular tomatoes was $2.77. So in our example, if the farmer's cost for production of the tomatoes is $2.06, that means that the farmer would be making 71 cents in profit. But how do you know whether or not that's actually a good profit? So one way that you can figure that out is by looking at a profit margin percentage, which is a measure of how much profit you can make from your total revenue, and that can help to guide your decision. So in retail, a general rule of thumb is that a 5% margin percentage is considered low, a 10% profit margin is average, and a 20% profit margin is considered high. So again, it's up to you and the factors that we've been talking about to determine what profit margin is going to make sense to you given your context. So if you know what the sale price is or what you think it should be, like if you're at the farmer's market and everybody is selling their zucchini for $3 a pound, and you want to know if that is giving you a good profit margin percentage, this is a formula that you can use to figure that out. So the profit margin percentage is going to be equal to the sale price minus the cost per pound divided by the sale price times 100. So in this example, our profit margin percentage ends up being 25.63%. And that is based on 277 being the price that New Mexico Grown has set their tomato prices at, or that they're estimating the average price to be. And your $2.06 is what your cost is for producing the tomatoes. So that's how you get your profit margin percentage. So if we adjusted our sale price to $2.50, then using that same formula, our profit margin percentage drops down to 17.60%. So keep in mind that with the profit margin, that the 5% is considered low, 10% is considered average, and 20% is considered high. So does that feel like a reasonable profit margin to you? And why or why not? And I'm going to open it up to you all to, kind of have a little bit of a discussion about that.
So I don't mean to pick on anybody, but this reminds me of the question that Samuel had a while back of like, how do you deal with other vendors at the farmers market whose prices, if your prices are way too low or too competitive, then it's they feel like they're getting priced out of the market. Like I wonder if like everything knowledge is power and stuff, but I wonder if everybody knows what their profit margin is, or if they choose to have it higher than it should be. What do you think?
Yeah, does anybody want to chime in on that? I'll jump in and just say I think that a lot of people don't understand profit margins. And I think that especially amongst people who are selling produce, the tendency is to just sell produce for the same prices that other people are selling the same produce for, without really taking into consideration, your true cost of what it takes to produce your crop, and also the profit, because sometimes you don't really need to make that 20% profit margin, right? Like maybe maybe you make a higher profit margin on a different crop that you're growing. And that's how you kind of balance it out. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about this. And something like New Mexico Grown, a program like that, um, maybe it makes sense to lower your profit margin a little bit so that you can sell more produce to the program. Or maybe you want to give other people more opportunity, in which case you might take a lesser profit margin. So yeah, there's just a lot of different ways that you can go about it.
Okay, Emma, I believe that you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of people do not understand profit margin because I don't. I'm new to this. Um, the thing is that a lot of people want to sell their stuff in one weekend or whatever it takes, and then leave and not come back. So
Mm,
sell it low price and get out, or you sell it at a high price, make as much as you can, and keep going
yeah.
back or get out. So what I'm wondering is, does anybody operate under any guidelines at these farmers markets? I mean, is there certain guidelines that anybody follows, or is it just free for all? What? How does that work?
That's a really good question. As far as I know, there aren't specific regulations that the markets have. I could be mistaken on that. I would have to do a little bit more research to have a definitive answer on that. But I think that it's a more community-based kind of, I don't want to say a regulation, but a community practice, perhaps. That farmers don't try to outcompete themselves. As Miss Elio was saying, sometimes people might actually just get booted out of the market for being overly competitive. I think that the farming community certainly lifts up people who try to support one another with how they are setting their prices. So that's something to perhaps consider too, is that you don't want to set your prices so low that they're pushing other people out, but not so high that you're out competing yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That's something to consider next year when I actually get this off the ground. But anybody else have some advice for me?
Hey guys, I'll chime in just as a consumer. I'm not selling anything, but I would like to at some point. But I visit the Los Ranchos Farmers Market every Saturday. And a lot of what I do is I go around once and see what's available and what it looks like and what the price is. And what I find is it's all over the board. You have some people that farm as hobbyists. You have some people that are doing this full time professionally, and they price accordingly. But you can tell a lot of times people undersell their produce, and so. But it is all over the place. But I think the important point I'm trying to make is you just need to know the market. Like it's good to know what your competitors are doing and what other people are selling for, and to know what it costs to run your farm. I think that is like a lot of us do it as hobbyists or we've always done it. So we've never sat down and said, oh yeah, I paid for water. Oh yeah, I bought a new irrigation system. Oh yeah, I needed my gas for my generator. It just kind of traditional how we've run our farm just to sustain ourselves. But we got to really think of it as a business and all of the costs included in that. And if your costs are too high, then look at that. Like, if you're not making a profit, like how do I reduce my costs? Can I water from the sequía? Can I water in a different way? Get my energy in a different way. But that's what I'm seeing at the farmers markets when I walk around. It's all over the board. And so maybe do a little research on that too before you go out and sell your stuff would really help.
Yeah, thank you for that, Monica.
Okay. And I see Miss Celio has their hand up.
I have two questions, and I don't mean to make this complicated for you all, but I'm like really interested with thoughts of people in the room in the um yeah in the Zoom. So what how do we kind of consider like two things? One thing is, and this has been on my mind since I started kind of my own farming, which was like 2 years ago, and this year, yeah, so it's newer. But how do we consider folks with like that are using the social services, like double up food bucks, which is like SNAP, EBT, WIC, senior bucks. Yeah, I've just been curious about that, and even working the farmers market, I honestly still don't know how farmers like consider that in the pricing. And then also inflation. How do we consider that? But I also want to be clear and say, like, we've been talking. These are my thoughts, but I feel like we've been talking through like a capitalist, perspective and point of view, and so profit is obviously top of priority. But I come from like my grandparents were farmers in central and northern Mexico, the people before them, and they were a lot of the reason why we lost land, and then production, means of production on our lands, were because these markets became even more competitive when the United States brought and further industrialized agriculture in Mexico, which was just last century. So anyway, I believe destruction. I believe it means destruction on a community level, state level, national level, global level. That's what it leads to. That's my perspective. So anyway, I think, and this is a suggestion now, I think values is something that I had to consider when I first started farming, because I was trained to be productive and to focus on my production. I trained out of the Bernalillo County like farmer training program. So like all of it was production. But something that I clashed with them about, but I also found a large community of people who do this. So a lot of native farmers specifically, I'll take for example, like um, sorry. So there's a group of farmers in this letter, and I don't know why it's escaping my mind, but anyway, we're seeing more and more farmers do. You buy one box share and you get to give another one for free, and or I've gone to markets where they're open to trade and exchange. I want to, at least that is how I've been told communities that my family farmed in work in. So, but anyway, just a suggestion of mine for anybody starting is like, be clear of your values. Is a value of yours production and profit, or is it getting food out to communities? Because for me, actually, the reason I go with Mogro grocery is because even if I undersell, I know I'm feeding I know I'm feeding children and seniors in the pueblo Okeyowinge. And for me, that was an obvious, yes, I'm absolutely going to underprice. But then when I'm selling to a bougie restaurant and a bougie market, then I upsell. Then I upsell. So just that's a suggestion of mine for this, like for any farmer, but also this actually even presentation of just being clear of what are your values.
Yeah, thank you. That's really important. I think that your values play a really, really important role in setting your prices. And yeah, everything that you said, Micelio, I agree with you. Because yeah, I mean, the markets that we're selling to, they have different values themselves. So making sure that who you're selling to, that they align with your values as well, that's really important, because it's your business. I mean, whatever reasons you are farming or in the industry that you're in, it's important for you to be aligned with your values. So yeah. And then as far as like doing like mutual aid boxes and getting subsidized by like the SNAP and double up food bucks and things like that. Um, when you are set up to receive those kinds of payments, specifically, I'm talking about like the SNAP and the double up food bucks. When you're set up for that, you are, I believe it's on a reimbursement basis. So anything that you set your prices at, and again, that's totally contextual. It depends on, what you want to set your price at based on your values and all of the other parameters that we've been talking about. That will reimburse you for that cost per pound. And then for the double up food bucks, I believe with that program, they actually double the amount that you are receiving for the produce. So that's one way that you can go about it. I would recommend checking in with the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. They have someone on their staff who is specifically designated for the Double Up Food Bucks and SNAP program. And I believe her name is Sarah. I've spoken with her a few times, and she's been extremely helpful and just a wonderful person to talk to about all of that stuff. So I can either connect you with her, or if you want to reach out, like I said, she's a great person to talk to about all of that. And then let's see what else. Oh, and then as far as like the mutual aid kinds of boxes, from what I understand, a lot of those are grant subsidized. So it comes from like grant funding. So that's a whole other area that we could get into, but I'm pretty sure that's how some of the groups in Isleta and some other places are doing that. Like I know the Fresh RX is doing that through some grant monies. So yeah, I think that there's definitely ways that you can make that work for you. You can apply for different grants to be able to offer things like that. And it's just a matter of pinpointing what those grants are. And that's, I can go down a whole rabbit hole on that whole thing. But yeah.
One quick question, Emma, and this is tied up with the stuff that Miss Elia was talking about. So this is a question by Cecilia with the Baca Family Farm LLC, and she asked, does SNAP and Double Up have to be only at the farmers markets? So I believe, and quote me if I'm wrong, Emma, but I think you could also do a food stand, right, and do it that way.
Yeah, you can. You can get set up as an individual seller with SNAP and double up food bucks, as far as I understand. I know definitely with SNAP, I would have to double check on the double up. But I'm pretty sure they're connected to the same program, so you should be able to do both. So yeah, I think the best thing, I can actually do some research myself. And for those of you who are interested, maybe just send me a quick email. I reached out to all of you with the link, and I can send you the contact information for Sarah over at New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association, and also collect any information that I'm able to find on that for you. But yeah, as far as I know, you're able to do that at roadside stands and your own farm stands. So yeah. Cool. Well, I think we can move to the next slide. All right. So let's move to another side of this. So let's say that you actually know how much of a profit margin you want to achieve. So this formula will allow you to calculate what your sale price or your total revenue per pound should be. And that's based on, already knowing what profit margin percentage you want to make. So on this example, we're going to say that the farmer wants to go ahead and go for that high 20% profit margin. So in this case, it's going to be the cost of production. So that's the $2.06 divided by 1 minus the profit margin percentage, which is 20% in this example. And that's going to bring us to a sale price of $2.55. All right, so we already had quite a bit of a discussion, but so based on the differences between the profit margins, if you were this farmer and you were selling to the New Mexico Grown program, what adjustments would you make to your price or your profit margin if you were them? And what factors would you consider in making your decision?
Well, I'll get the ball rolling here, and so based on other farmers that I've had the opportunity to talk with, and the New Mexico Grown program. So I know depending on their like actual farm location, they will adjust the price based, other than their cost. But like something that will definitely change will be like depending on where their farm is actually located, uh, uh, compared to where they're trying to sell their produce. So if the school is pretty close by, then the price will be about the same. But if it's something where they have to tag along with a food hub or ship it through a third party or something, then the price goes a little bit high because they got to adjust for whatever that may be, and that's definitely like a situation based. Like if I don't know, you're trying to supply food to like um, Farmington or something that's not really all that close by, and that has limited access to specific foods or whatever, then that's something that I see a lot of farmers go through. So yeah, I guess shipping could sometimes be a thing that makes your expense go up.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of your direct costs. And that's something that can fluctuate a lot, right? Depending on where you're transporting your produce, any other kinds of transportation needs that you might have. And so that's going to change your cost of production for your produce. So that's definitely going to change your selling price. So yeah, I mean, that might make you consider a few things, like maybe if you want to cut down on your costs, um, maybe it makes more sense for you to transport your produce directly to the school or senior center rather than going to the food hub. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it makes more sense to deliver your food to a food hub so that they can distribute it for you. How can you save some money that way, and lower your cost, so that you can perhaps be more competitive in the market? Again, it's up to you and what your values are. Maybe you want to make a little bit more profit in this scenario, but that's kind of what I'm asking is like, what would you do in this situation if you were selling to New Mexico Grown?
Should I take us back a slide or two? So we can look at those numbers again.
I think that might be helpful. Let's see, maybe, yeah, I think this is okay. Or yeah. Yeah, so again, on this slide, the profit margin percentage was 17.60. And this was for setting the sale price to $2.50. So yeah, based on the profit margin percentages being in that range of 5% being kind of low, 10% being average, and 20% being high. 17.60, I'll give my opinion. I think that that's quite high. So I would probably lower it if it were me. Kadri, would you take us to the next slide that has the... Awesome. So then on this one, the farmer took the profit margin up to 20%. So their sale price is $2.55. So yeah, I guess given the two different scenarios, you know, having a profit margin that is less than the 20%, how would you all feel about that kind of difference? Like, would you lower your profit margin more if you're selling through a program like New Mexico Grown, or would you go for that higher profit margin? What would you do?
Um, sorry. I know, yeah, I know you said like this is kind of hypothetical, but like when you're looking at actual prices at the markets, like right now, they're like about $4 a pound for tomatoes. So I think that
Mhm.
this number is like, um, it's accurate, but then, I was thinking the same thing about, the lower amount is like maybe your wholesale price, and then your other number would be like your market price. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was thinking of the two pros, pro profit margin percentages.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really awesome way to look at it. Because yeah, some farmers are able to offer the wholesale prices. So if you're selling to a wholesaler, there's someone who's going to be distributing your produce, and you have more produce to sell, like this farmer who has 5,000 tomatoes to sell, 5,000 pounds rather. Um, yeah, it might make sense to offer that wholesale pricing and then offer a different price for markets. So, yeah, I think
So,
that, yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I think if folks have not sold in any market before, I think what Reina just said, you should definitely write that down. That was some free game right there. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, if you're at the farmers market, you know that your clientele has a little bit more income. Yeah, so it's okay to be a little bit higher. And if you're going for wholesale because you're trying to sell through the New Mexico Grown program, that directly feeds the children in your community, the elders in your community, and you're just trying to make sure that your food is going to to your community, and you're okay with making a little bit less because that's part of what who you are. Then yeah, that's where you go lower. So thank you, Reina. That's some good advice there.
You're welcome. Um, on the other, there was another question that I was trying to get to, but there was a question about double up food bucks. So I think definitely take advantage of those opportunities and programs because it not only benefits like your percentage of your income, but also benefits like the people that are actually needing the vegetables or produce that they might not typically be able to afford. Because the double up food bucks, what it does is it gives the purchaser more money to like buy the produce. So say they have $10 of SNAP, then the program gives them an extra $10, so they can potentially be buying like $20 worth of produce from you instead of 10. And those programs, you can do it if you have like uh what do you call it? A farm stand. If you have a farm stand set up, you can like pretty easily apply to that program. And I know that a few people use it as part of their CSA too, because you can't really, I mean, they can use their money however they want, but like when you're trying to operate like a CSA, you can charge them like a monthly, however much their monthly bag costs or weekly bag, then that's how much whatever they're able to pay. Because it can also work for a CSA type model too. But you have to really keep a good record. They supply you with the paperwork that you need so that you can turn it in, and then they can give you like the money that you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Reina. Awesome. So yeah, we moved pretty fast today. So I appreciate your time, and this is the end of the workshop. But yeah, in conclusion, pricing your produce is not just about setting a number. It's about including all of your operational costs and importantly, making sure that you're paying yourself for your own labor and that you're covering that so that you can ensure the longevity and the sustainability of your farm. Being able to make a little bit of a profit, it does allow you the opportunity to invest that back into your operation so that you can expand your operations, so that you can grow. So that's something to consider. And even though I know a lot of us are not so much in the capitalist mindset, it does allow you the opportunity to have more freedom in how you operate your farm and your business. So just I hope that you come away from this workshop with a little bit more of a skill set in your pocket that allows you to set some prices that make sense for you. So yeah, hopefully you're knowledgeable, that you have some, like I said, some new skills that you can use and that you're prepared for setting those prices. So yeah, I think at this point, does anybody have any questions?
One thing, and it's not a question. So I think is the just to get started, finding out your cost might be the thing that takes you a while. Just really
Yeah.
writing down like what is it that you spent on, how much is that you spent on seed, how much is that you spent on that one tool, on this, on that. So having a notebook or somewhere where you keep a file of like all your costs and stuff. I mean, just starting off with that might take you a while, so please don't get discouraged. But that's part of like the first steps to really know how much you should be. What is your cost? Well, first you got to know all the money is going. So that's that would be my first part of advice, just like really writing down your expenses if possible.
Okay, so I got a lot of neat stuff out of this here today, and I'm just wondering, do you guys do this often? These um, Zoom meetings, whatever?
To be completely honest with you, we haven't done one in a while, so this is our first in some time. But we do want to start hosting them more often. So, yeah. We also have some workshops that we've done previously that we'd like to put up on our YouTube channel. So hopefully we'll have those up on the YouTube shortly so that you can go back and review those. And those are on some different topics like business management and financial management. And we also have one on cooperative development, I believe. And there's a few other different topics that we've covered too. But yeah, the plan is that we'll have more of these workshops in the future. And since you registered for today, I have all of you on our email list. So we'll make sure that we have you on our newsletter sign up. So you'll get updates on when we're having these workshops.
Okay, good. That was my next question, but you just answered it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you got some stuff out of it.
Okay, yeah, me too. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you, Cecilia. Yeah, as everybody learns more, then yeah, you're welcome to help with other future